Hello and welcome. I'm going to be talking about a cycle that a lot of us can find ourselves in regarding dealing with failure, dealing with upset, dealing with difficult times. Now, I noticed this was a very profound cycle that I was in, but because I have a very strong sense of resiliency, because I can power through a lot of problems in life, and a lot of us can, if we've had traumatic past, if we've gone through a lot of difficulties in our past, we can tend to build up a lot of resiliency that will help us get through difficult times. But after a moment in time, after a certain point in time, we may hit a roadblock, we may hit a wall, or we may come crashing down from the trajectory that we've been on. So when we're up against a lot of adversity, when we are pushing hard, when we are wanting certain results, wanting to get to a certain part in our life, wanting a certain way of being, when we're pushing up against the flow, we can often hit a moment where we fall back down. And for myself in the past, I had done this for years. There are many different sizes to this exercise, meaning incremental achievements, if you will, or incremental steps to these phases that we may encounter along our way. And the phases that I'm talking about are moments where we have a choice to make some changes, or we have a choice to keep repeating the same way. And when we keep repeating our old ways, when we keep repeating old patterns, when we keep operating unconsciously, when we keep maybe even ignoring the signs in our life, it is going to catch up to us at some point in the future. And for myself in the past, I had gone through this and I was on a very, very strong trajectory to a certain goal and to a certain way of life. And I was not paying attention to the signs. Because I have a lot of resiliency, because I can be very strong and deal with a lot, I had been dealing with a lot during this whole trajectory, moving me up to where I was trying to go. And oftentimes, if we are on that path and if we are not paying attention to the signs and listening to ourselves and being tuned in and honoring the difficulties and what needs to change in order to create positive improvements, we will continue to escalate on that trajectory until we hit a point where we have basically crossed the line of no return, where basically we have to make serious changes. Now, this can come in the form of an illness. It can come in the form of loss of career, loss of relationships, loss of self. It can can show up in quite a big, drastic event in our life. And those events are usually the time when we're forced to make changes. And this is something I had gone through. It's something I've worked with a lot of people as well through. So I'm very familiar with this process. And I've seen it a lot too in other situations with other relationships, other people who have gone through this phase and have not been able to recover. And it is very important to understand this phase, these phases, and they come in many different shapes and forms. They come in very drastic, serious losses, serious illnesses, serious life-changing events, or they can come in incremental pieces as we move along, but we may ignore those incremental pieces if we have resiliency, if we are very stubborn, if we want certain results and we ignore the signs. And so you can see almost we can be on this steady incline to go up into a certain degree of a path in our life and get very stuck on that path, wanting certain, again, results, wanting to maybe stay in a certain relationship, wanting it to be the way you want it to be, and we oftentimes tend to force the path that we're on, or we want to force the results. We want to force our timelines, and it's nothing that can be forced. And when we lose sense of our true self, then we can often be very, very focused on making something work that might not be meant for us, might not be meant to work, but we can force ourselves into fixing something or maintaining something or setting a goal and being very, very direct on achieving that goal, when sometimes things just need to change, or maybe the goal needs to change. Maybe it's not in alignment with our true authentic self. Maybe the relationships that we're in are not the relationships that we're meant to be in. And so we can often lose sight of who we truly are, what is truly important for us, and where we're really meant to go. And this was, again, a path that I had been on. And I went up this very, very, very steady incline towards some kind of goal. I was trying to aim to some kind of goal, some kind of heights, have some kind of achievement, and it wasn't working. So I was pushing uphill for many, many, many years. And as I was pushing harder, my life was falling apart also during that process, but I was not paying attention to it. I was putting up with it. I was learning to adjust to it. And then eventually it all fell apart. So I hit my peak where I went crashing down. And during that crashing down period is when we have that choice. It's when we have the choice of what changes do we need to make? Where did this come from in the first place? Who am I and what is important for me? And we can take a pause during that downtime and make those constructive changes. Now, it's unfortunate that a lot of us, a lot of people in society may not have the opportunity to do that. An opportunity, I mean the desire. It does come with work. It comes with a chance to make changes, but we may fall into fear during that downtime. We may fall into resentment. We may fall into grief. We may fall into shame and guilt. And when we fall into those beliefs and those emotions and thoughts, that can also stop us from growth. We may succumb to those thoughts and those feelings and those actions and behaviors in our life, and some people may not be able to find their way out. And so when we hit the bottom, or when we hit the downward spiral, if you will, that is the perfect time to create change. That is where we will learn the most about ourselves. That is where we can go back in time and backtrack and see where those patterns started, how that trajectory began, what happened during that time, and how can we make adjustments to move into a better direction or move into a direction that's more in alignment with our true self, what we truly desire. It's a very difficult time to navigate when we're in that low and we're in that downward spiral, because it can feel like our life is falling apart. It can feel like we're losing everything. It can feel like we are lost within ourselves. We are losing everything and we are losing ourselves in order to regain more clarity, and to regain a greater sense of self and direction and confidence with ourselves, with our true selves, and especially clarity, right? When we live through our programs, through our subconscious beliefs, through the life that we may have been constructing our entire life or for many years, then it's going to take a lot of effort to unwind from that, to detach from that, and start to be open for something new. It's a credible loss going through this phase, and a lot of people unfortunately don't recover from it. But those who spend time and doing the work on themselves and finding their true self, going through the healing or going through the self-discovery, going back in time, when we go up and then we come down, we can go back. We can go back to the start, or even go back a little bit in time to make sense of what has happened and how we got to where we are and what needs to change. And change is essential. We need change, and we need to go into ourselves and understand ourselves in order to make improvements. When we're in the same patterns over and over again within our mind, within the work that we do, with how we show up, within our emotions, then we will not be able to change. We're going to keep repeating the same patterns. We're going to be stuck in that same way of being, when things just need to change. And those downward spirals and those big crashes, those big hits, if you will, are the perfect time to create change. And I've mentioned this before in other videos as well. Challenges are opportunities, but our old mindset, our old beliefs, our old subconscious patterns will look at challenges as problems, as devastating events. Look at those challenges in fear. Look at those challenges or interact with those challenges with shame or guilt or anger. And when those are becoming activated within ourselves, that is the most opportune time to do your shadow work, to do your inner work, to create change. Because it's a pattern that is coming up. It's an old false belief that's starting to surface. When our shadow is becoming exposed, when our shadow is taking the helm, that is when we will be able to see it if we choose to look at it. And once we shine light on our shadow and we shine light on our subconscious beliefs, what we're thinking, what we're saying, how we're feeling, going back into time and understanding where that truly is coming from. It's not coming from the loss. It's not coming from our career. It's not coming from other people. It's coming from a belief system, an old subconscious belief system, a memory that is embedded deep within. And that is driving how we feel. It is driving how we think. And so it takes a lot of courage to work through this process. It takes a lot of awareness to work through this process. But once you give it the time, taking a pause, going within, looking back a little bit in time, assessing the patterns, assessing the unconscious belief systems, and assessing the shadow, the thoughts, the emotions, being very aware of what is surfacing and where it truly is coming from and why, then you'll be able to create incredible change and incredible self-awareness. And all of this work is really around self-awareness, self-actualization, self-mastery. When you become more aware within yourself, you will create great change in your life, because all of the change that we create in our life starts from within here. All of our interactions with relationships, with people, how we see and perceive life, the level of success that we want, the kind of lifestyle we want, the kind of person we want to be, having a healthy and fulfilled and balanced lifestyle, that all comes from our ability to understand ourselves on a deep level. And the deeper that we can go with this, the more change we will see. It's that simple, but I know it's difficult because there are many layers to this. But if you're noticing yourself stuck in a pattern or on a trajectory that you don't feel quite is in alignment with your true self, or you're hitting that point where there's a bit of a dead stop, or it could be going down a bit, a downward spiral, losing something, that is a great, wonderful time to create change. Because when we go through loss, that is actually the universe giving us an opportunity. We have to look at those opportunities as a gift for something new, a gift for something better, a gift to go within, and a gift to make changes in our outer world as a result. When things fall apart, it usually means that we're either outgrowing it, it isn't in alignment with our true self, we're not meant to have it. Maybe we're most likely meant to have something better. We're most likely to have something that is in alignment, that will truly align with our heart, with our soul, with our core being. And we have to trust that process, and we have to trust ourselves. And it's a whole completely different way of working, because we're used to working a certain way, the old paradigm, if you will. And when we break through that, if we break through our old ways, our old beliefs, our old self, our ego, our attachments, our identity, and we truly align with what we desire most, it is going to put us on a path for something greater. So remember, when things fall apart, they're for a reason. And there is a gift in all of those moments in time. There's a gift and an ability to go back to assess the steps from the past to create greater change for our future. There's a time for us to change our entire life if we desire. So those moments in time are profoundly important. It does require work. It does require dedication. It does require determination. It requires a little bit of resiliency and an open mind and an open heart towards something greater. So I hope this offered you some guidance on your journey and beyond. And I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Take care.